Hi Nicole, hi Tom. Just thought I would run through first concepts with you with a little video. So I hope you're able to access this okay. I'm excited to show you what I've come up with. So I'm actually just going to launch straight into it because I have a tendency to ramble on. So bear with me and I'll try and get everything on screen for you that I want you to see. Straight away, I'm going to go straight into this mood board. This is kind of ideas, a collection of ideas that I've used in your design. So as you can see there, it's all about creating this kind of privacy and seclusion that you need from being overlooked at the end there. Some beautiful lighting, easy maintenance is obviously very important for you. So what we'll do is use a good structure of evergreens and some feature trees that uplit at night are just stunning and beautiful. Excuse the dog having a little moan, he wants to be let out. There you go, look, he always does that when I start recording. What we're going to do in quite a small space is actually just create a big wow factor. So I want to include some features like a raised bed to sort of screen and cover some of the brickwork garage walls that you've got in the garden. So rather than trying to hide them completely, I'm going to really make a feature of those walls. And this, if you look at this top right picture here, this is a great way when you've got a garage wall like that in your garden to actually be able to build off it and make a real feature of it. I've found is just brilliant. It's a bit of a blessing really, and you can build in front of it and bring plants up, and before you know it, it just looks fabulous, and it's it's a real feature of the garden rather than thinking of it as something to really hide and sort of screen. Also, the blessing with having walls rather than sort of fences all round is just the amount of heat they retain, which is why the sort of Victorians did walled gardens for their kitchen gardens and things. So you can grow some really beautiful things in those up trellises on those walls, and they really retain the heat, and you can get some fabulous sort of growth fairly quickly. Also good lighting, we've talked about that, and I just wanted to show you a couple of pictures just on the paving choices. You talked possibly about greys, which we could use a nice sort of silver tone grey like this kind of slab, which is very nice. But I was just kind of looking at the different brickworks that you've got going around. You've got the red brick and a sort of yellow brick, similar to this sort of thing. And actually using a lighter coloured paving, a sort of sandy colour, really kind of ties those tones in quite well. So we can talk about that later, but yeah, I'd be happy to go with a sort of light stone, a grey silver tone, or something like this in this bottom left corner, perhaps using these sort of buff tones, and that kind of brings together the red brick and the sort of yellow buff brick that you've got in your garden. So it's important to make sure we're not bringing too many different materials in, and we want to tie it all together. So without further ado, that's the mood board. Obviously I went through in great detail all of your points of consideration, and I agree entirely that strip down there is very wasted. And the builders always do this. They would always build a direct path direct to the gate, which is hasn't got any sort of design thought behind it. But yeah, just thinking about the colouring again, this sort of red brick of your house, and then the render, the red brick here, and the sort of mellow yellow brick of this garage. I think if we introduce a grey, it might be perhaps too many colours, but anyway, let's have a look at what I've done and show you what I've come up with and see how you feel. So I'm going to zoom straight out first and show you I did lots of scribbles and decided to go straight into modelling. So everything here is drawn to scale so that you can see the shapes, and that's the most important thing first of all, is getting I sort of find getting things lined up with the main points of entry into the garden, your doors here and the windows and the viewpoints, is really important. So luckily you had a very nice clear square. There was a slight angle to this back fence with this side on the left being slightly longer, but nothing to worry about. So thank you for all those measurements, that was really helpful. Anyway, so this is an overhead plan, and you can see I've just gone in straight away with very simple basic structures. The reason for this is partly budget constraint, that curves, and sort of as soon as you create curves and circles, then straight away you're introducing more cost because everything needs to be cut to a curve. But also I just think they sort of work really well with this this shape plot. We just seem to get the most out of the space. And what I've been toying with is bringing your patio area, your sort of main seating area, into the garden so that it's not squished up right by the back of the house. There's no reason why we need to sort of squash patio furniture right up to the house and then have all the rest laid to lawn and flowers all around the outside, which is what most people sort of do. So what I'm doing instead is drawing you out more into the garden and creating this area here, which is the beautiful south facing aspect. So you will get full sun here all day, but then the beauty of having this lovely garage wall is that we can build up against it. I've put a raised bed here, and we can put some very simple planting structures here and a climber up against the wall and introduce some height into the garden. What that does is it creates a kind of vista through it, sort of having this sort of pergola structure around it, creates a sort of framework. And I've done it in 3D so that you can really see how that works. Then to soften up all these straight lines, I've put in some sculptural clipped sphere buxus balls, just as a kind of sculptural element to kind of either side of your main patio area. And I've brought in a little planting bed of tall grasses and a bit of colour so that you've got something beautiful from your windows, and it kind of divides up the garden as well. Even in a smaller garden, I think having a kind of division coming across the space just means you've got something to look through and, oh, what's behind there? You know, it just kind of, people worry sometimes that dividing up a garden in a small space makes it feel smaller, and I've always found the opposite to be true. If you feel like there's more to explore and you don't just see it all in one view straight off, it's good to have a little bit of division. It's not much, and I'm going to show you in 3D, so don't worry, it's not a huge divide, but just a little bit to sort of wonder what's around the other side. And then going down to the bottom of the garden, another little raised bed here, perhaps in sleepers, to incorporate your tree and put some the existing tree and add to it further and put some more height along the back there to help with your privacy issue. So that's the basic layout from above. Everything's in proportion. You know, the shapes work well and fit well together. And I want to show you in reality, to say, you're lucky I'm in lockdown because I usually don't have time to do all this on first draft, but I've managed to go the extra mile for you guys, and hopefully this will really help you see how your garden could look. Just takes a little time there. So this is how all of those structures could look. As you see, sort of, you know, it really is a good thing, not a bad thing, to have this brick wall here, this neighbour's garage, and we can build off it. And there's no problem doing that at all, and we'll create this beautiful kind of room. And these kind of structures I found are so good for kids as well. I mean, it will automatically give you a little bit of shade in the height of the day. You can hang things off it. You can, you know, if Hayley wants to go out and play and you want to, and it's a really stinking hot day, and you want to build a den, then you can throw sheets and big cloths over this and you can create a den for her under there. You can have a more formal canopy. You can have blinds and things attached to sort of wooden pergolas, but I want to show you another idea I've got in the next model, but there's all sorts of things, but for now it was just, I wanted to give you a sense of the kind of structure and what that does, and very cleverly we can zoom down and have a look through your French windows. So you can sort of see how that gives you some instant privacy. It will give you that lovely feeling of seclusion that you want, just having these upright posts. You know, even if we don't use them to grow things up and they're just left as quite a modern, squared off kind of built structure, just the posts themselves give you that sort of feeling of privacy. And it gives you a little outdoor room space, you know, just a few overhead beams, and you've got this lovely extension to your home, which I think, you know, something that you asked for, an extension of your sort of living space. And then if you can see here, this little raised bed that I've done, either budget dependent, we can build it in blockwork and have it rendered as this crisp, smooth sort of rendered finish that I think would be nice to match your house, or as I say, sort of, you know, once you have landscapers look at it and budget dependent, you could even just go with the raised sleepers, which is a cheaper option. But I thought if I put it in as a raised rendered bed for now, it's just a narrow bed with some greenery, very easy to keep, sort of shady plants, and something beautiful to grow up the wall. I've got this Garrya elliptica, which is an evergreen sort of shrub that climbs up walls and has these lovely silvery tassels. And another climber further down, and that just covers that wall instantly. And then if we put just a foot of trellis in above the existing fence, then you've got real seclusion and privacy, a couple of extra multi-stem trees at the bottom, and you are completely, you know, within no time at all you'll feel like you've got a sort of extra privacy. So this is a view through your window, and I wanted to just show you how with some tall grasses you sort of create that sense of separation, so that you've got planting coming up and to the house, not just all around the edges. So let's zoom in and take a look from this side. There, just leave that to render a little bit. Yeah, so can you see, just by bringing the planting into the garden horizontally rather than going along the boundaries, it just creates that little bit of divide, and we can have some very easy maintenance, tall grasses, some perennials, a little bit of colour in here. I'm just going to spin you around. Here's the sort of pergola structure. You can have a table under it, you could have sofas, you can move them in and out of the shade. Obviously the shade that's created, or the sort of cover that's created, will move around throughout the day, and it won't always be directly shaded under there. It might cast shade, you know, earlier on in the morning further down the garden, and then it might come under here later on in the afternoon. You can have the timbers open or closed, you can have more timbers across, you can have louvered timbers. There's all sorts of sort of designs for this pergola. But one thing that I kind of would probably insist on is that it's quite a modern structure. You'll notice it's clean-ended, sharp and square, rather than the traditional kind of off-the-shelf kits that you get where there's an overhang and sort of shaped twiddly bits on the end. I don't think we need any fuss or bother with this design. I think, you know, keep it sharp and modern with your house. And then you did sort of request if there was space for a little storage area. I've put in one of those little half sheds. They're actually for cycles, but they're big enough just to put a lawnmower and a few hand tools in, so that's quite handy. Or, you know, a few little garden things, a few little kids' toys or whatever, or a bike. So there is room for, you know, a sort of small kind of sheddy there. And then on this wall, a beautiful established climber that will just spread out and go. We can have taut wires go from pillar to pillar at sort of equidistant equidistant here across horizontal, the horizontal plane, going from pillar to pillar, tension wires, that's the word. And we can, you know, spend some money on a decent, substantial, something like a pyracantha, an evergreen, you know, even if it's, you know, £100 or something, it's worth going in with something established that will create this beautiful framework structure. And that's all you need, you know, just one sort of substantial wall climber there to give you some coverage. And it's just simple but very effective, hopefully. Now I want to show you a separate idea, just because I know that you'd talked about curves and having something rounded off, and I'm just going to whiz over there. Now, what I did on this design was I just took the basic sort of layout that I had, that I was happy with, and as you can see, I've kind of rounded it off and created some curves. And instead of this little square area of pebbles here, I've put in a circular area, and I've rounded off this bed here instead of an L shape. Now I haven't gone to full 3D on this, just because the amount of sort of time and effort it takes, but hopefully you can get a sense of that if I bring the model down on this plane. Yeah, so I just wanted to give you that option. If you know, if you sort of do feel that curves are more your thing, this same design, the principles of the same design could work with a few curves added. As I said, the only thing that slightly concerns me is the extra cost. Obviously all of these pavers have to be sort of cut with a circular saw and just rounded off, and it's a little bit more tricky to build the curved edge on that raised bed down here where there's a slight height difference. But I'd say everything else could just work the same. So I don't know, I thought I would just sort of show you how that would look. I guess it gives you a little bit more paved area here to play with. But I don't know, I was quite happy with how it was sort of all working out with the kind of square shapes. But I just wanted to sort of show you how that would look. Anyway, back to overhead, and I want to show you one final thing. So this is my main sort of offering to you then. If we go back here, this is my original model with the pergola structure coming off the building. Main point is create some shade, create an outdoor room, give you that feeling of seclusion, and it will give you an instant garden because it gives you that height in a modern garden where everything is just flat and level. So that's the main idea, and a bit of seclusion with the trellis behind. What I want to show you is how that could work if we do something really designery and extra special. So I've taken the same model, I've taken out the cross beams on the pergola and replaced them with beautiful bespoke screens. There's a company called Screen with Envy, great name, I've used them several times before, and their screens are absolutely stunning. So if you want to look up on their website, it's here actually, they've got all these beautiful screens, lovely patterns. They come in black or grey, and they do even have some more expensive ones in Corten steel. But these screens can be used to divide the garden on pergolas, and I just thought, wouldn't it be fabulous if we used some of these lovely screens overhead as the overhead canopy to give your garden, if you really want that wow factor and a real designer kind of look, then that will look like something out of the Chelsea Flower Show. It's really quite special, and actually I think some of those screens, in that I've sized them up. I think we would need sort of 4 for a decent size overhead canopy, and then we could go for the smaller trellis option along the back fence to really tie it all in. And these panels here are about £85 each, so it's not bad, and the trellis ones are £40. So in terms of the overall look and feel of your garden, and really if you want to spend some money to get some wow factor, I think it would be a good place to spend it. I know you were looking originally at the cedar cladding, and that's extraordinarily expensive. And actually I think in your garden, you know, these walls don't really necessarily need to be fully clad. I think with a little bit of greenery, climbers, and planting will do the job. But I think these decorative screens could really add something special. And the reason is, I just want to show you and leave you with this as a final thought. This stuffs up the model a little bit, it makes it a bit clunky, but I want to show you the shadows, because I think this will really just feel so lovely at certain times of the day. There, it's finally thought about it and sent the shadows. Just think of the lovely shadow patterns on the ground if you had a beautiful decorative screen above, and this lovely pattern in. I just think it would make it feel really extra special on your patio area. So and if we could link it into the trellis panels above the fence in there as well, wow, that could be really something special. So anyway, a lot to think about. Let me know your thoughts. All the details and things will come in terms of choosing paving. Think about the screen, think about the pergola idea, the overall layout of the garden if you're happy with the space. And then we will start buttoning down all of these extra details. So let me know how you feel about everything. Give me your feedback and comments. You know, take your time and come back to me perhaps later in the week or the weekend, and we'll go from there. Okay, thanks guys. Bye for now.